Arash Adnani, thanks so much for coming on Wall Street Unplugged.
Thanks for having me, Frank. Good to be here.
So people may be familiar with the last name because I've had Amir on this podcast plenty of times, but we've been friends for a long time. We've actually went to the World Cup together in Brazil almost like 10 years, I think, right?
2014.
the World Cup, but we've been friends for a long time. But So you created this site that's amazing. And I know you've been working it for a long time, and now it's launched. It's called privateplacements.com. And I love sharing my resources with my guests because they don't know about sites like this. They don't know how they can get into private placements, and all of them want to try to get into private placements. Explain privateplacements.com.
Sure, yeah. Listen, privateplacements.com, as the name suggests, is the ultimate research tool for private placements investing. And what the site does is aggregates every private placement by Canadian listed companies. So on a daily basis, we add every financing that's being announced and closed in the Canadian markets. That's by Canadian listed companies. It's the only tool of its kind. And best of all, it's free. So investors are really using this for their research. They're using this for deal flow. And the website, it was really built by investors for investors. When we built this, we looked at the question of how can we create something that we can use ourselves. And as your listeners are familiar, private placement investing is one of the best ways to become a shareholder in these companies. There's major upside and there's great sweeteners through the exposure through warrants. And so privateplacements.com allows you to research all those points in great depth. It consists of 5 main elements. And the main one is the financings database. And that's the one that gets updated every day. The financings database is very granular. So you're able to go on there and actually research the listings by sector. So if you're interested in precious metals, which a lot of investors are right now, you can just look at precious metals financings. If you want to only look at financings by those that have warrants attached, you can do that. You can select warrants, whether it's full or half. You have the option. And you could look at financings by brokered or non-brokered. As you know, a lot of companies are raising money basically directly to the investors from management team, which is a non-brokered deal. And sometimes that makes it a lot easier for investors to get involved with that. So the name of the game here is really the access to the data and the timeliness of the data. With a lot of these private placements, once a company announces a deal, they're on the clock. They're trying to close the financing. So if you're an investor and you're trying to participate, being able to see what's available the day that it's announced is really valuable because it gives you enough time to follow up and get in touch with the company if you do want to participate.
You know, you've run a very successful digital agency for a long time, Blender Media, and you've worked with public companies in Canada for a very, very long time. Is that how you came up with this idea? Because having everything on one site is really cool, and it's absolutely free, which I love, and I love bringing free tools to my listeners, subscribers. And one of the biggest things is they all want to get into private placements. And of course, most of these, as you know, are very dangerous, right? Every company wants to raise money, but some of them are incredible. Some of them are great deals. And you know, with the warrant, you can get incredible upside. But talk about how you came up with this idea. Is it just by talking to so many companies? You know, you're in Canada, how many companies are raising money, and you know, maybe you have access to a deal, your brother does, and some of the insiders, but most people don't have it, especially in the U.S. So how did you come up with the idea and all the data for this site? Because it is pretty amazing.
It really was a natural evolution. So Blender Media, as you mentioned, we're a digital agency, and we specialize in creating websites for publicly traded companies. The company's been around since 2005, so we've worked with thousands of companies, from large companies like Goldcorp all the way down to small, very small startups. So working closely with companies, the one thing that we realize that companies need most is access to investors and the ability to articulate their value proposition, their investment proposition to investors. And some companies are great at it because they have management teams that are very active and they're very charismatic and they're great presenters. Other companies struggle with it because they might have management teams or CEOs that just aren't as visible, and they might not be able to command a room, but they have fantastic deals. And so what we realized is having a tool or a platform for companies to be able to tell their story to a targeted audience, something that is immensely important for the companies. Now, on the flip side, another thing that we realized is that for investors, having access to these deals and knowing what's going on with these deals is as important. And one thing, Frank, that I think you do a great job of for your audience is kind of being the guy that's out there, going to all the conferences. We've been to some conferences together, going through what's out there as far as upcoming trends, who the A+ teams are, what's happening in the market, and what people should be paying attention to. A lot of people don't have that luxury of knowing what's going on because they don't have access to the teams or the conferences. So they might subscribe to your newsletter or other people out there. And so privateplacements.com is another tool for investors from anywhere to see what's going on in the Canadian capital markets. The Canadian capital markets are extremely well followed and popular globally, not just in Canada and the US, but overseas. It's a market that's well known for its venture space and for its regulatory strength. So I think having this tool and creating it as a gateway for investors to really see what's going on and having that access to that information on a daily basis was a no-brainer. Once we started kind of thinking about it and drawing up the plan, we knew this needed to happen, and we knew that there was a real need for this.
Now, when did you actually launch the site?
It was earlier this year. We did a soft launch in January, and we announced it right before PDAC, which is basically early March, late February.
And how many people do you have signed up to it already, if you're allowed to say that?
It's we don't disclose those numbers, but
because I know there's a lot because you're getting a lot of demand. I don't know if you're allowed to disclose them, but it's leading to my next question because I wanted to take people through this. And guys, if you're listening to this on iTunes, we also have this on a Curzio Research YouTube page, so you can see a video. Unfortunately, you're going to have to see our faces. But luckily, Arash is a good-looking guy. But I want to bring up your website to show people, because, again, it's absolutely for free, and it's such a good resource. So why don't you take us through, and I'm going to bring up the page here, and take us through here, because the first thing, and I try to always put myself in my listeners' shoes, right? And they're saying, okay, Canada private placements, mining stocks. But when you really go to the first page, it's not even mining. I mean, you have cannabis here, right? So I guess, can we?
Well, hold on. Let's do this. Okay. So this is the financings page on the website. Once you're on here, if you're actually looking for opportunities, the first thing you want to do is at the top bar there is to go to status, the top row. Second from the right. Oh, no, sorry. In the gray box there.
And status, okay.
There you go. Yeah. So you want to go with announced. So announced means these are financings that are currently open. Let's pick precious metals because there's a lot of activity right now with gold and silver.
Right here.
And yeah. So select that. And let's go under warrants, 2 columns over there. And let's click both full and half. I really feel like if you're investing in private placements, you should be getting exposure to warrants. Now let's scroll down. So this automatically sorts all the available deals that meet the criteria that we just selected. And as you can see, these are deals that were announced on June 2nd. So this is from yesterday. And you can see right here, the name of the company, the ticker symbol, the price of the financing. So you have Tectonic Metals here, Tectonic Metals, 20-cent raise, 15 million shares, 3 million total proceed. It's a non-brokered. So Tectonic Metals actually is a client of ours on the agency side. The CEO, Tony Reda, used to be with Kamenak, which was a big exit. They sold to Gold Corp. So that's actually an interesting deal. if I was an investor, you can click on it right now. And it takes you to the term sheet, gives you a little bit more information. So it tells you the region. They're in Alaska and Yukon, great jurisdictions. Gives you the warrant information.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So, I mean, heck, I would pick up the phone right away and talk to Tectonic and see if I can participate in this financing. This is how easy it is, Frank. And I'm laughing because someone asked me yesterday, how would I describe private placements in one sentence? And I said, we put investors 1 degree away from wealth creation. And really, that's how easy it is you can look at it day to day. Every morning, you can see what's happening in the last 24 hours. And the ones that look interesting, you can pick up the phone, call the company, you can talk to them and get more information and see if it's something that fits your criteria.
And this is pretty amazing because when we go back to this, and I look, it's non-brokered. A lot of these non-brokers, you can really call the company if you're a credit investor and get it invest in companies. But what I notice is this isn't just like BS companies. You have hundreds here listed. Again, we picked something that would list this many companies, but it just shows you the half the full warrants. But there's like,
yeah, like look, you got Air Canada down there. You have, Great Bear, another great story. You have the real estate REITs there. This is everything. Every Canadian listed company will be featured on this. We don't curate or yeah.
No, this is
so our job at this is to show you everything that's available. We take that the investor will then, based on their preferences, will decide what direction to go from there. So we don't play favorites, or we don't have any sort of filtering or bias about who gets featured. We got companies calling us, asking us how they can have their private placement feature on the website, and we just tell them, issue a press release, it'll get picked up. So there's no I just tell them, just announce it. I'll go on there.
Everyone's looking for publicity. What I like about this is you have everything in one spot. But even when I look at your website, like I said earlier, it's not. We pick base metals, precious metals, but it's energy, healthcare, cannabis, finance, industrials, technologies. I mean, you list everything automatically. Now, here's the big question. This is Canadian, and a lot of my investors understand Canadian stocks. That's the mining industry. Great exchanges there, much better than buying some of these things which trade on over-the-counter exchanges. So what about U.S. listed? Because is that a little more difficult? We're not talking about the ones that are, Goldman Sachs coming out at it, but there's a lot of small cap companies I cover that raise money. Is there any way you can cover some of the site, or is it just really hard from, you being in Canada and covering? Because that would be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, we've looked at US and we've actually looked at Australia. We've looked at the ASX, and we've have done some testing on tracking the data. The way that the data is tracked is, as you can imagine, it can get pretty complicated. And each country with their requirements with filings is slightly different. So the system that will apply to Canada will have to be modified for US and modified for other countries. So right now, Canada for us was the first market that we wanted to cover, and it's such a big market that right now there's a lot more to achieve just in Canada. We haven't decided on any other countries or markets yet, but like I said, there's still a lot to do in Canada, and especially with precious metals being in such demand right now, and Canada being kind of like the Silicon Valley of these precious metals juniors and startups. I feel like the timing is perfect to have this service for the Canadian markets.
I'm going to say something to you. Why are you giving all this away for free? This is more information. I mean, again, I love, when it's investing, it's all about having access, and it doesn't mean having insider access. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when I'm going to conferences. We just recommended a company that we're doing very well on called Wrap Technologies. In this environment, what's going on, we all know with riots and stuff like that. This is a non-lethal device that wraps people up, and the stock is taken off. I've filmed police that I interviewed, retired police chiefs, the whole entire management team, and I got shot by this device over a year ago. But I was introduced to this guy who runs this company from someone who I know in the industry, and I have a deep contact list just like you do. But talk about the importance, because having access to this, and people don't know this is available, where they could actually see every financing going on with every company in Canada, basically. And how important is that? And is this thing always going to be free?
Listen, the freemium model, which is a well-known model for a lot of SaaS companies, it's something that we've explored. So right now, the data that we're offering is free. And to set up an account, it's free. And don't forget, a lot of this information is publicly available. What we've done is we've built a tool that aggregates all this information and allows for the research, sorting, and filtering of this information to be simplified. So if you wanted to do what we've done, but do it on your own, it will take you a few hours a day probably to track everything. So we see our service really as a way to empower investors. And right now, the data that we provide is really valuable. I think it's a no-brainer to use this as part of your kind of toolbox for researching opportunities. There's no plans to. Sorry, I just had to silence that call. There's no plans to change it. So we're going to keep providing data for free. There's going to be more premium solutions provided down the road. But this data that you get right now, which is so valuable, will continue to be free. And right now, another thing that we just added recently that you can actually see if you go back to the website, and this is really important because this allows you to have a easier time tracking these deals. If you go to my watch list in the top right corner, so as you can see, there's some deals already added here. So you have Bluestone Resources, Gold Mining, Great Bear Resources, Valor Metals, and Well Health Technologies. So you can actually create your personal watch list. And what this does is it notifies you anytime one of these companies is raising money, anytime one of these companies has closed the financing, anytime the stock from the financing becomes free trading. That's really important. As you know, the shares that you purchase through a private placements have a 4-month hold on it. And so knowing when that stock is free trading and whether it's in the money or not is extremely important. And having this tool to be able to track that kind of keeps adding to the overall value of this tool and resource. There's also the warrants calendar. If you go to the navigation there, warrants right there in the yellow bar. There you go. So this shows you all the warrants that are becoming free trading. Amex Exploration, that's actually a crazy one. They have warrants at 15-cent strike price. I think their stock is trading at $1.10 right now. Whoever's owning those warrants, they're very, very happy.
Wow, there's like hundreds and hundreds of companies on this list.
Yeah.
Wow, this goes so basically tracking all the data. This is an incredible site, and the fact that all this is for free. I just love sharing the resources with everybody. And the watch list is important because, I mean, even the companies that you own, sometimes you want to own more, but you can put them on your watch list. And when they actually announce one of these, now you could probably get in it. You're a shareholder. If it's a brokered placement, it might be a little difficult. You might have to have an account at that specific brokerage firm. But
there's still a way though. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's still a way, even with brokered. I feel like, if you don't have an account with that firm, just contacting the company and letting them know you're interested. Most companies aren't going to say no unless it's really oversubscribed. They'll try to facilitate if they can. At the end of the day, companies and issuers see the value of adding new shareholders and bringing on new investors. So they're not going to say no. It's more so a matter of if the timing is right and if there's still any financing paper left.
Yeah, this is great stuff, Arash. Congratulations on this site. And I really thank you for coming on. I mean, look, I don't get paid for anything. I just try to bring resources. And this is a free resource where I get this question asked all the time. How do I get into more private placements? Here it is. because I don't even get to see all of them. I see some of them. I could share it with my newsletter subscribers who are credit investors. But to have all this in one spot is pretty amazing. So really good job, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. And if your users and audience, if they have questions, feel free to email me. It's just my first name, Arash, ARASH @privateplacements.com. We're adding new features all the time to the website, and really we want this to be the one-stop shop for private placement investing.
All right. And before I go, this is much more important than anything we talked about. The World Cup. Where is it? Where's the next World Cup? It's not Qatar yet, right?
It's supposed to be in Qatar, yeah. 2022. But it'd be interesting to see what happens. But either way, that would be a fun destination to go to if it's obviously safe to travel and all that other necessary requirements.
Well, if they're right about the coronavirus that doesn't travel well in the heat, it's probably going to be 120 degrees there. So that's a good sign, right?
So maybe it's the best place to be there. We'll have to just move the operations to Doha.
No, that's definitely the next road trip, buddy. So listen, thanks so much for coming on. And, I'll talk to you soon. We'll get together soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Frank.